Right now, the City of Madison expects more than 100 people at a meeting that's just about to start. Many of the attendees concerned about the future of the Sauk Creek Greenway. That's a stormwater corridor in this area between Old Sauk Road and Tree Lane. Many of the people gathering tonight calling themselves the Friends of Sauk Creek. With a city project underway, the Friends want to make sure the woods in their backyard is safe. NBC 15's Michelle Beck is live inside Phillips Memorial High School, where city officials will soon meet with neighbors. Michelle, these neighbors are organized with clear goals.
Yeah, those neighbors are starting to trickle in right now with just about 30 minutes left to go until this meeting starts off. And they're prepared really with signs that say their main message. And right now they are really trying to get in front of the city's planning process. They just want to make sure that trees that they love are protected.
Look, this is beautiful. You just don't find this anywhere anymore.
This is Gwen Long's backyard, a part of the Sauk Creek Greenway the City of Madison has its eyes on.
And we want to make sure they understand when they do these plans to really save these trees at all costs.
Trees are a top priority for the environmental group she helped create. Friends of Sauk Creek talking with city engineers about their plan to stabilize the stormwater channel in the Greenway.
Because it isn't stabilized, the water pulls off dirt and sediment, and that flows downstream. That dirt and sediment makes our lakes and rivers polluted.
City engineer Jojo O'Brien says in the process of stabilization, some trees will be removed. Just how much is unknown, with project design not slated till next year.
The city also wants to preserve as many trees as possible, and we really want to get community input on how to do that in a way that they feel good about.
Long agrees that the stormwater corridor needs work, but when that work happens, her hope is that these woods will continue to look this way for herself and her neighbors.
We want people to come out here and enjoy this beautiful green space and leave it as a natural area and not overdevelop it.
And again, tonight's meeting starts in the next half hour or so, and this is really the beginning of this year-long process of community engagement. The city says tonight and continuing on, their goal is to discuss all the different options that it has to work on stabilizing that channel. Live in Madison, Michelle Beck, NBC 15 News.